A few years prior to Christ being crucified, there was the rise of the Roman Emperor Octavian. And at the time there was strife, there was lawlessness in Rome. And Octavian rises to be the emperor of Rome. And in doing so, he brought peace to Rome. He settled a lot of problems. Now, when he ascended to the throne, this is what they would yell. Pardon me. They would yell, "Good news! The emperor is here. He has ascended to his throne. He has conquered his enemies. And he is for you. And his victory is your victory. Good news. And if you don't receive him, shame on you." That is what was screamed as Octavian would rise to take his throne. Now, fast forward a few years. Jesus is before Pilate, the Roman counselor, procurator. And Pilate says, "Are you a king?" And remember, ringing in the ears of Pilate and the hearers is Octavian rising to the throne. So Pilate says, "Are you a king?" And Jesus says, "I am a king." And then he says something extraordinary. He said, "For this reason, for this purpose, for this cause, I have come, and to bear witness to the truth." What truth? That he is king. Now, I find that extraordinary because what Jesus was saying was, good news. The king has arrived. He has conquered all his enemies. Well, he will do in the next few days when he's crucified and he rises. But I will conquer my enemies, and the enemies that I will conquer, my victory will be your victory. And if you receive me, if you turn to me and receive me and believe in me, my victory is your victory. If not, you will not participate in my kingdom. Jesus was saying, the king is here and the kingdom has arrived. Now, the reason I say that's extraordinary is I've been thinking about what we would call the good news. How is the gospel means good news, by the way. What good news? What Jesus just said. The king is here. The king has arrived. The kingdom is here. I've been thinking about that in the context of how the church preaches the gospel, how the church preaches the good news. And, I've heard things like Jesus loves you, and come to Jesus and all your problems will be solved. These sorts of things. Strictly speaking, that's not the gospel. Now, the fact that Christ loves us, now that is good news, but that is the motivation for the king coming and bringing his kingdom. For God so loved the world, it says. And there's the motivation for the king coming. And as for Jesus fixing all your problems, those things happen as a fruit of the gospel. Those things could take a long time to work out in your life. But that is not the pure gospel. The pure good news is the king is here. And he has brought his kingdom with him. And his victory is your victory. And if you turn your heart to him, believe in him and receive him, then his kingdom comes in you and you are in the kingdom. That is the good news. So when we think of the gospel, we need to have a rethink about how we're preaching this good news. I was at a church recently where when I was preaching the kingdom, a lot of the believers didn't fully grasp what I was saying. And I believe that's because that when they were saved, the kingdom wasn't preached to them. They were given something other, or given a fruit of the good news. How about we get back to preaching the good news of the gospel, which is the king is here and he has bought his kingdom. That's great news, not just good news.